This is the kind of story that you need many years to be away from it in order to cover it, simply because of the noise and distortion surrounding it, and also the fact that it's a story of a tragic, terrible loss of human life and the appalling human tragedy that spins off from that. I've also got a personal connection to this story because I know some people who witnessed what happened. The TWA Flight 800 basically dissolved in the sky above Long Island is a very strange story in that it took until the year 2000, 14 years later, for the authorities in the US to reveal what had happened to the plane. And it's one of those stories that the conspiracy is the conspiracy. This is why I've never ever trusted 9/11 conspiracy stories or any other conspiracy theories, and Flight 800 was probably the first conspiracy theory I took an interest in, because so many people, seeing the accident, said that they saw a light travelling upwards after the explosion. That suggests a missile, but I think the story has a lot more depth to it than this, and certainly has a very strong Fortean aspect. Now, for those of you who don't know, a Boeing 747 on a routine flight from JFK Airport in New York to Paris essentially dissolved in the sky off Suffolk County in Long Island at 8:19 p.m. shortly after takeoff. It was the 17th of July 1996. All 230 passengers and crew members were killed in the explosion. It wasn't until 2000 that the investigators were able to pinpoint a definite cause for the disaster. Apparently an electrical fault was given in one of the wings that causes the fuel tank to explode. The initial news reports I remember at the time watching on the usual propaganda network, CNN, even had a so-called terrorism expert on, claiming the IRA had done it. There was other stories too that the plane was being used to transport troops to the Gulf War, and that's why it was also attacked by Islamic terrorists. The last noise heard from the flight recorder was that of a loud explosion, so the possibility of a bomb was more or less discounted following metallurgical tests recovered from the wreckage. There had been no traces of Semtex or other kind of explosive found on the wreckage. Until the official explanation came out in the year 2000, many other possibilities were put out there. There was a recurring claim that a streak of light was seen across the sky, heading for the doomed plane, immediately before the explosion. The Federal Aviation investigators and the FBI claimed that when the initial explosion happened, the front part of the fuselage fell off, and then the plane suddenly leaped forward, flying upwards before it made a descent into the sea. Plenty to back up the claim of a missile at the time. BBC News reports mentioned that the FBI were even investigating an unexplained object which appeared to streak towards the airliner. And prior to 6 p.m, some strange radar anomalies were also seen, picked up by air traffic controllers on Long Island, moving at high speed in and around the area of Flight 800. And they were also mentioned on CBS radio in the US. Then other evidence came up when the New York State resident named by Linda Cabot discovered a mystery object in the sky she had taken in a photograph between 8 p.m. and 8:45. The object appeared to be cylindrical, with one end glowing, gave further credit to the missile theory. Also interesting is that two jets that were departing JFK at the same time reported seeing strange lights in the sky also. Nazir Aziz, a co-pilot of the Pakistani Airlines Flight 712, was about 16,000 feet when he saw the streaks of light coming from the light of the plane about 3 miles ahead. His captain contacted Boston Air Traffic Control to ask if any military exercises were taking place in the area. He was told that they were not, and the flight continued without any incident. The streak was also sighted by a TWA airliner following the Pakistani plane, and the air corridor eventually was closed to all traffic because of these mysterious lights. This is what primarily led to the speculation that the plane had been shot down by some kind of missile through either malice or incompetence. Immediately this discussion was shut down as conspiracy. Pierre Salinger even came forward and announced that he had a secret document proving that the plane had been taken down accidentally by a US Navy missile, but he never turned over the document to anyone, and he never revealed the source. I remember watching this at the time and thinking the whole thing seemed very staged and set up. He was acting almost like Cancer Man from the X-Files TV show, which was playing into the idea of government conspiracy, accidentally shooting down the plane and then covering it up so the families wouldn't find out. Incompetence within the US military could have done such a thing. This is where it gets really interesting, is that it took place very close to the Brookhaven laboratories on Long Island, highly secret military and civil laboratories. A month previous to the TWA 800 crash, a member of the Long Island UFO research group called John Ford had claimed that strange events were taking place at Brookhaven. Strange lights were being seen around the laboratory. He called up Brookhaven, and being a retired bailiff, he was very pleasant and articulate in his discussion with the laboratory's PR person, a woman called Mona Rowe. She claimed she wanted to give him more interesting answers as a sci-fi fan herself, but she could not give credence to John Ford's initial speculation that this was a UFO or captured extraterrestrial technology. However, there was something very strange going on in Brookhaven, and this was 1 month before the TWA plane fell out of the sky. Ford was the first person to come to the conclusion that the events taking place at Brookhaven National Laboratories and the flight TWA crash were connected. Almost instantaneously, Ford was arrested and put in a psychiatric centre. His house was boarded up, and the UFO group on Long Island, which he led, was dissolved. To this day, his supporters claim that he was set up and he had come up with a link between the Flight 800 TWA crash and the events and experiments that were taking place at the Brookhaven National Laboratories. Being a UFO guy, as he was considered, his belief was that this was somehow extraterrestrial technology. One of the earliest conspiracies was that TWA Flight 800 had broken up after it had entered into an area where simply reality had changed. Reality had no longer existed and was disconnected to the events at Brookhaven. This brings home why we should always be careful of conspiracy theories being put out there, especially if they're put out there by government individuals such as Pierre Salinger. It's a smokescreen and they're hiding something else. That John Ford, the Long Island UFO guy, was absolutely onto something regarding the strange events taking place that summer at Brookhaven Laboratories and how TWA Flight 800 literally dissolved in midair not too far away.